If The Galactic Barrier isn't an episode title that promises so much, I don't know what is, but does it live up to it? Hi, I'm Phil, welcome to my channel where I like to talk about all the geeky pop culture that I like and consume. Things like Doctor Who, things like the MCU, and things like Star Trek. And we're nearing the end now of Star Trek Discovery Season 4. A few episodes left to go, but we're with the plot line of the season arc is moving on swiftly, and we are at the Galactic Barrier. The Galactic Barrier is like one of those big things in Star Trek, isn't it? We had that episode in the original series where Gary Mitchell gets some kind of psychic powers from them trying to cross the Galactic Barrier. Then we get a few episodes of, like, there's an episode of TNG where they get thrown to a different galaxy, so they've gone through the Galactic Barrier there. But overall, it's kind of this containing thing to the Star Trek universe. Everything we've seen has taken place within the Galactic Barrier, and now the promise is they will pass through it, and we will see maybe what's on the other side. It's kind of exciting. Now, I make no bones about the fact that I was not particularly on board with this whole DMA plotline story arc initially. It's taken a while for it to warm up for me. It kind of felt very much like just now doing the same thing again. Mysterious events happening. They've got to work out what it is. Weird space anomaly thing. Kind of what they've done for the last 3 seasons almost. It's, it felt like they were going around for a third time on a similar thing, and that still might be the case. But the last few episodes, I've been getting a bit more interested in it, and now I think I'm on board. Obviously, will it stick the landing? I don't know. It depends what they find on the other side, I guess. But I hope they do something interesting with it, and something that doesn't feel like an anticlimax, which a lot of the season finales of Discovery have felt a little bit anticlimactic to what they were built up to be. Before this episode aired, there was a lot of speculation about why there was a Picard-era badge on the table. What plot? Well, were we going to get some time travel involved? Was this going to link in with the plot lines from the upcoming season of Star Trek Picard? No, none of that. They've just got a whole array of different translators on the table, kind of just to make a point as well. Not even for any actual use. Just to make a point about the fact that we might not be able to translate how they talk, because they might not talk in verbal language. That might not be how they communicate, this species, the 10C. So, yeah, I think basically that badge was there just as a bit of, like, a tease to the fans, and then one that didn't really pay off, but I'll let it slide. It was nice to see the badge, I guess. There's a lot of preparation to go to the Great Barrier. We get the president saying that she's coming aboard as well, and so she's handing off power to her sort of vice president in terms of the Federation, so that she can go on this mission because of her diplomatic experience, and so she can head up the diplomatic aim of it. We've got Bryce leaving, which is one of the bridge crew that hasn't had much development, and I guess now won't. I mean, I can't think of a reason why getting him off the ship other than because he's leaving the show, maybe? I don't know, but he's not had that much development, and it doesn't look like he's going to either, so yeah, there you go, got rid of another crew member. But one of my favourite bits of preparing for this was Saru bearing his soul to the Navarian president. I still can't remember her name, but that was lovely to see. This whole plot line of him kind of slightly falling for the Navaran president has been lovely, and it's a nice bit of character stuff for Saru. And I really felt for him when she gets, he bears his soul to her, and then she just doesn't respond, and she gets called away, and he's kind of left there, standing there going, oh, I didn't get a response. I don't know how she did. He doesn't know how she feels, and it's not till later on in the episode that we kind of get a bit back from her. But in that moment, I felt pretty sorry for Saru in that moment. Poor guy. But it's, he thinks this is potentially going to be the last time he's going to see her, because this is a mission that they might not come back from. They're going to cross the Great Barrier. This is, as far as we know, not been successfully done without repercussions. So it's a whole new world, a whole new exploring new worlds and new civilizations taken to another extreme here, and they might not come back from it. So he's kind of bearing his soul because, and telling her how he feels about her and that he thinks he wants them to be more than just friends because he might not see her again. But then she joins the mission and he has to then run into her in corridors, and it's very awkward. I kind of like that. That was a nice little bit. The President and Burnham have had this kind of slightly adversarial relationship. They've kind of butted heads a few times, not in any particularly major way. When the President joined them on a mission, Burnham felt the President was undermining her. And that comes up again here because she's joining the mission again. Burnham wants to know that she's not going to, undermine her authority again as she sees it. But as the President sees it, and I like this point she makes, have we learnt now the difference between asking a question and questioning her? And I like that because there is a distinction there. It should not be wrong to ask a question, but there's a difference between that, just asking a question to probe further, to actually saying this, to questioning someone's orders and saying that you are wrong. There's a difference there, and the President is pointing that out. But as Burnham points out, it's a complex issue, you see. Burnham points out that, yeah, but that undermines confidence my crew might have in me, so please don't do it. And I kind of see both points of view there. I'm very much someone who thinks that authority should be questioned, answer questions, certainly be held to account, and shouldn't be above being asked why they're doing something. But equally, I do get Burnham's point about not being made, not undermining her crew's confidence in her. So it's a complex issue, but it was nice that they're addressing it there. Another key bit of information we find out is that the mycelial network doesn't expand beyond our galaxy, so they're not going to be able to use the spore drive once they pass through there, and they can't even jump out of it with the spore drive. They've got to pass through it because the mycelial network doesn't extend there. It even gets slightly thinner towards the edges of the galaxy, so they can't even get right up to the barrier straight away. They end up like 9 light years back when they thought they would be 3 light years. It's as Stamets says, it's not an exact science. After we've entered the barrier, we get the news delivered to Burnham and the President, specifically, their eyes only, that the DMA has moved and is now in the vicinity of both Navarre and Earth, which, yes, a little bit predictable possibly, but I think it was a good move to ramp up the stakes. So at this point as well, it created a bit of drama as well, because the President doesn't want the rest of the crew to know, but Burnham thinks they deserve to know. And there's that tension there again between them, and who gets to decide what's told to the crew. So the President thinks it will take their mind off the mission. Burnham thinks they deserve to know. But eventually, Burnham does kind of convince the President to tell them, and she does so in an address to the ship. And I thought that scene was really well done. It could have been cheesy, but I think it was good. There was the music they put in the background, the shots as she was making the speech, the facial expressions, which weren't over the top by any means. They weren't like crying about it. They weren't like breaking down about it. They were just very stoic, kind of. You could see the emotion on their face. You could see it was, as they went from crew member to crew member, that it was affecting them, this news, but it reinforced the determination for them to succeed. And that was a very moving scene, and I thought it was very well done. Visually, I thought all the stuff passing through the barrier was pretty impressive. I thought this is a criticism going way back to the original series, but the Galactic Barrier being a thin strip that looks, certainly when you're looking at it, like you could just go above it or below it. I mean, I know it doesn't work like that in practice, but I would have thought they would have changed the visual representation of it to look more like something that was all-encompassing, that you couldn't just like go above or below, because that's what it looks like. I mean, I know it's not, like, practically that's not what it is, but that's how they present it on screen. So I wish they'd updated that a little bit, although I get why they would want to keep it consistent with what we'd seen in the original series and stuff, so fine, that's okay. But the actual look of it and everything, beyond that little criticism, I thought was fantastic. It looked The visual effects on it were stunning as they were going through it were stunning when they're in the little bubble thing that they're trying to use as a sort of way to get through. All of the visual effects on it were absolutely fantastic. The other element of this story that I haven't touched on yet is Talek's backstory. Talek? Have I got his name there? The scientist guy. His backstory, the one that went off with Booker. They're trying to pass through the Galactic Barrier as well in Booker's ship, and they need some material which Discovery, has on hand to fit itself out with back at Federation HQ, but they need to go and source. So they go back to an old outpost of the Emerald Chain, which he was held prisoner at for many years, and we get flashbacks to his time there and his friendship building with another scientist there that he was tasked to work with, and as we find out at the end, tasked initially to spy on. But while he was spying on him initially, by the space they were working together for 2 years, and by the space of a year they'd become friends, and he'd started giving misinformation to his captors because he had generally become friends with this other scientist, and this other scientist was trying to develop secretly a transporter that would transport people to alternate universes, to mirror universes, to alternate dimensions, so that they wouldn't have to, alternate timelines, etc., so they wouldn't have to, as a means of escape. And he was going to help, get the two of them out of there with that device. Unfortunately, they get kind of found out beforehand. He escapes, but his friend doesn't, and he's been going back every year since to see if there's any sign of him. He thinks that his friend managed to successfully use the device to escape, possibly because there's some signage that he's scrawled on the wall that would indicate maybe he has. So that's certainly an interesting possibility. We've been dealing with the multiverse and stuff a little bit. They mentioned a incursion from the Kelvin timeline last season, so I wonder if this is an area and obviously we've had the mirror universe stuff with Giorgio and stuff, so I wonder if this is an area we're going to continue to explore in the series overall at some point. Be interesting to see. But for me, I think this part of the story, all these backflashes and seeing this friendship grow, gave some much needed sympathy to this character. He has been the arrogant scientist since we've known him come on board, and while he was working for the good guys, certainly he's been an arsehole, basically. And just seeing some of the backstory to that, how even before these flashbacks he'd been kept basically in isolation for 5 years and had nobody to talk to. So he's lost all ability to socially interact because of that. Has no concept of personal interaction anymore. He's just completely gone because he's just been talking to himself for 5 years. And then you get this friendship, and seeing what happened, you can see how he's ended up as he is and what drives him, and it gives him a bit more sympathy, which I quite like. So for me, that's kind of, that section of the episode is really the heart of the episode and the most interesting stuff. The Galactic Barrier stuff is exciting for what it might bring, but I don't think that's been realised yet. I think next episode, when we see what's on the other side of the barrier and we get to encounter that, that's going to be the interesting aspect for the Galactic Barrier. Although I do, of course, like the interactions with Saru and the Navaran president. That was probably the highlight of that for me. And there was the nice stuff between the president, the Federation president, and Burnham as well. So there's good stuff in there. But the scientist bit, flashbacks were, I think, the more interesting bit of the episode. Let me know what you think. Next week, they're heading on into the unknown. To sing a bit of Frozen there. Sorry. I've been watching too much Disney. What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know in the comments below. Are you excited? I'm interested to see what happens next. I'm actually now invested in this story arc, which I wasn't for the first half of this season. So I'm glad I am now. I really hope they don't drop the ball at the end. Let's see. I'll see you for more reviews later. See you then. Bye-bye.